well, and I also hope that you are having a good day. So, today we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. So, we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. So, we are basically going to within this lesson, we are going to find out the differences between a simple sentence, a compound sentence, as well as a complex sentence, also a compound complex sentence. And before we start with our lesson on simple, compound, complex, and compounds complex sentences, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, which is English, and then grade 8. And then once we have selected grade 8, and then we're going to run up until we get to our chapter of simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. So this is going to be our chapter for today. And our tutorial lessons we are doing on A plus students. So even when we are done with the lesson for today, and then you can go back, recap, go over certain things, the chapter, all those will also be on the screen, right? So we are on aplusstudents.ca. So we are going to explain deeply about simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. But for now, our chapter is simple, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. The subject is English language arts, grade 8, and the lessons that we will be focusing on today, which is under the chapter of simple sentences or compound sentences, complex sentences, or compound complex sentences, is the sentence simple? Is it compound? Is it complex? Or is it compound complex? So we need to, by the end of our lesson, be able to answer these questions. Like, was the sentences that we identified, was it simple, compound, complex, or compound complex? And we need to identify dependent and independent clauses. So that is going to be our two focus lessons today. All right, so we will start with a simple sentence, right? And a simple sentence has one complete subject. So it has one complete subject and it has one complete predicate. So remember, subject is who is doing something, and then the predicate is the actual verb, right? That the subject is doing. So a simple sentence has one complete subject and one complete predicate. For example, right? The girls' soft team won the championship. That is basically a complete sentence, right? That is a complete sentence. Sentence is a simple sentence. There we have the subject, which is the girls, right? And the softball team won. So we have the subject and we have our predicate. And this is a complete sentence. And then we have a compound sentence, right? And a compound sentence contains two or more simple sentences which are joined by a conjunction. It's also joined by conjunctive adverb, or sometimes it is joined by a semicolon. So that two or more simple sentences that is joined by a conjunction, we call them main clauses. And a main clause has a subject and it has a predicate and it can still stand alone as a sentence. Stand alone as a sentence and it is joined by either conjunction, a conjunctive adverb, or a semicolon. And in this case, this sentence is joined by a semicolon. So the team won championship. The team won the championship. It was a close game. So the team won the championship. It was a close game. So there we have our two main clauses. And then we have a complex sentence, right? And a complex sentence consists of a main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. So it consists of a main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. That is a complex sentence. It's got a main clause, right? Which is a simple sentence. And then it has one or more subordinate clauses. And we see that we are doing our lesson on aplusstudents.ca, our tutorial lesson, as well as our test. We will be doing on aplusstudents.ca. Actually, now you can go to aplusstudents.ca. So we're going to the first lesson. Okay, so a clause is a group of words that contains both a subject as well as a predicate. So clause, it's a group of words that contains both a subject and it contains a predicate. That's a clause, or it's basically a main clause. And then we have an independent clause, right? And an independent clause is a complete thought that can stand alone without even needing another sentence. So it can basically stand alone. It is independent. So the independent clause is a complete thought that can stand alone as a sentence, whereas a dependent clause is not a complete thought and it cannot stand alone as a sentence. For example, the oranges on our tree are ripe. The oranges on our tree are ripe. So it refers to more than one orange are ripe. So in this case, this is a clause that we just read, right? And this clause has a subject as well as a predicate, so it can stand alone. So it is basically independent. And we also call it an independent clause. And then we have another one that says, after we pick up Kevin from work. So if you even read, if you read that sentence again, after we pick up Kevin from work, it's like there's something missing, right? So what after we pick up Kevin from work? So which means that this is this is a dependent clause, right? Because it cannot stand alone. It either needs an independent clause in order for it to basically make sense within a sentence. Because remember, we said a simple sentence is made up of one independent clause and it has a subject as well as a predicate. And an example of a simple sentence Ben and I spent all day relaxing by the pool. That is a clause and it can stand on its own. And then we have like some of the simple sentences, right? They have introductory phrases. But then again, the introductory phrases are part of the predicate. For example, in the winter, Ben usually wears his heavy coat. So in the winter, Ben usually wears his heavy coat. Or we can even say Ben wears or usually wears his heavy coat in the winter. So almost like the wording is just jumbled up. So then that is a simple sentence, right? And we said simple sentences, it basically is a main clause or clause that contains both subject as well as predicate. And that basically is equivalent to a sentence that can stand on its own, a independent clause or independent sentence. Then we have a compound sentence, right? So we see the simple sentence, it is made up of one main clause and it has a subject and a predicate. So that is basically a complete sentence. It's an independent clause, an independent sentence. Then we have a compound sentence. And it is made up of two independent clauses that is joined by a coordinating conjunction such as and, but, or, so. Compound sentence, it is made up of two independent clauses which is joined by a coordinating conjunction such as and, but, or so. For example, we saw the flash of lightning and seconds later we heard a rumble of thunder. So here we have a one sentence or clause. And then we have the other one. Seconds later, we heard a rumble of thunder. So we saw the flash of lightning. Seconds later, we heard a rumble of thunder. And it is joined by a conjunction, which is and. This is our conjunction, which join these two simple sentences or the independent clauses. And then we have a complex sentence. And a complex sentence is made up of an independent clause and a dependent clause. So a compound sentence is made up of an independent clause and a dependent clause. And the dependent clause in a complex sentence usually begins with a subordinating conjunction or relevant pronoun. And subordinating conjunctions, they include words such as although, after, as, because, before, if, since, unless, until, when, and while. And then they say relative pronouns, right? So basically, subordinating conjunctions includes the words that we made mention of. And then we have relevant pronouns that includes that, which, who, whom, or whose. And remember, when it comes to a complex sentence, right, it has a dependent clause as well as an independent clause, or it has an independent clause, but it also has a dependent clause, right? And a complex sentence, right, it begins with a subordinating conjunction or it starts with a relative pronoun. For example, if she gets the chance, Terry would love to visit the Egyptian pyramid. So if she ever gets the chance, then Terry would love to visit the Egyptian pyramids. If, and as you can see, if is a subordinating conjunction. In a complex sentence, it starts with a subordinating conjunction, or it starts with a relative pronoun. During his trip to Italy, Tony visited the Trevi Fountain, which is in Rome. So that is basically a complex sentence where a complex sentence is made up of an independent clause as well as a dependent clause. And we said a dependent clause is in a complex sentence, it usually begins with a subordinating conjunction. And then, so we went over a simple sentence, and we said a simple sentence is it basically has a main and has a subject as well as a predicate. It basically shows or identifies it is a full sentence, fully completed sentence. Then we have a compound sentence, right? So now we have a compound complex sentence. And a compound complex sentence it is made up of two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. So compound complex sentence, it is made up of two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. For example, after Samantha left work, and you can see that there the sentence started with a subordinating conjunction. So after Samantha left work, she stopped at the bank and then she went to the gym. So we said one example is after Samantha left work, she stopped at the bank and then she went to the gym. And sometimes the dependent clause in a complex or a compound complex sentence can interrupt an independent clause. Orcas that are kept in captivity often have bent dorsal fins. All right. So we say that a simple sentence, it consists of a subject as well as a pretty complete um, a complete sentence. Then we have a compound sentence, which is made up of two independent clauses, which is joined by a coordinating conjunction, such as and, but, or, so. And then we have a complex sentence, which is made up of an independent clause and a dependent clause. All right. If we look at this sentence, right, it says, which type of sentence is this? Lorraine Hansberry wrote the widely acclaimed 1959 Broadway play, A Raisin in the Sun, and her accomplishment opened the door for other African American playwrights. So basically, if we look at this sentence, right, look at the sentence, right, and we can say this is a compound sentence. So compound sentence. Remember we said a compound sentence is made up of two or more independent clauses, right? Which is joined then by a coordinating conjunction, which is and, but, or so. So this sentence over here, a compound sentence. So it's a compound sentence. So which type of sentence is this? Plants survive only one season and must be replaced each year. But perennials return each year with new flowers and foliage. So annual plants survive only one season and must be replaced each year. But, which is compound, perennials return each year with new flowers and foliage. And there we also have but. But. So which means that this is a compound and it's joined by the word but. And there we have it. Compound right, let's look at this. If we can't find an inexpensive hotel for the 4th of July weekend, we can always stay with my parents. And this is a complex sentence. So, complex sentence. So, complex sentence, right? It has an independent clause as well as a dependent clause. All right, let's go to our test. So we're not going to have to say which sentence is this. Is it a simple sentence, which consists of a subject and a predicate? Or is it a compound sentence joins which joins two simple sentences with a coordinating conjunction, which is and, but, or so? Or is it a complex sentence which has a dependent as well as an independent clause? Or a compound complex? So if we can't find any expensive hotel for the 4th of July weekend, we can always stay with my parents. So I think this is a complex sentence. It's not simple and it's not a compound. And a complex sentence is correct. And an annual plant survived only one season and must be replaced each year. But perennials return each year with new flowers and foliage. Is this a simple, compound, complex, or compound complex sentence? And if we look at the word but, then it tells us it is a compound sentence. Because it is joined by a coordinating conjunction. The right hemisphere of the human brain typically controls muscle movement on the left side of your body. I think this is a simple sentence. And simple is correct. And now, since 1923, the United States Flag Code has provided advisory rules for displaying and handling the US flag. In 1923, or since 1923, The United States flag code has provided advisory rules for displaying and handling the US flag. So this is either a simple or a complex. The one that starts with a subordinating conjunction. Let's try complex. Oh, it's actually a simple sentence. So not having to worry about the start of that sentence. So it's a simple sentence that stands on its own. Now we're going to identify dependent and independent clauses. So now we need to, if we look at number one, or before, it says a clause is a word that contains both subject and predicate. And then we have an independent clause, and that's a complete thought. It can stand alone as a sentence, and a dependent clause is not a complete sentence. An independent clause is a complete sentence. All right, so now it says we need to select the dependent clause. Not the independent clause, the dependent clause. So we need to select the dependent clause. That's that clause that cannot stand on its own. Since Mr. Durand had been sick all week and may still have been contagious, he stayed home from his family reunion on Saturday. We need to select and identify the dependent clause within that sentence. Remember, we need to select the dependent clause. It's that clause that basically cannot stand on its own. All right, so now they say we need to select the independent clause. We already selected a dependent clause. Now we're going to select an independent clause. And after a lightning bolt passes through the air, the compression and subsequent rapid expansion of this air molecules produces the booming sound of thunder. Independent clause. And the independent clause is the compression and subsequent rapid molecules produces the booming sound of thunder. That our independent clause. So we now need to select the dependent clause. The center of the Atacama Desert in South America is considered one of the most areas in the world because no rain has ever recorded there. And if we look at, or let's say we select our dependent clause, then we can even say because no rain has ever been recorded there. So we can say that is our dependent clause. Because no rain has been recorded there. So now we're going to our test where we are going to identify dependent and independent clauses. So the center of Atacama Desert in South America is considered one of the most arid areas in the world because there has ever been recorded there. Because no rain, has ever been recorded there. All right, so we can say because no rain has ever recorded there. And that is correct. And then we need to select the dependent clause. Since Mr. Duran had been sick all week, the dependent clause. So since Mr. Duran has been sick all week and may still have been contagious, he stayed home from his family reunion on Saturday. So we can say it is since Mr. Duran had been sick. So let's go with since Mr. Duran had been sick. Oh, because yes, since Mr. Duran had been sick all week and may still have been contagious. All right, interesting. So after a lightning bolt passes through the air, we need to select the independent clause. The compression and subsequent rapid expansion of the air molecules produces the booming sound of thunder. So do we say air molecules produce the booming sound of thunder? Or the compression and subsequent rapid expansion of the air molecules produces the booming sound of thunder. So we need to select an independent clause. So we need to select the independent clause between the two options at the bottom. Is it the compression and subsequent rapid expansion of air molecules produces the booming sound of thunder? Or air molecules produces the booming sound of thunder? We need to select the independent clause. let's try the first one. And the first one is correct. All right, grade 8. So that is now the end of our lesson, compound, complex, and compound complex sentences. We said that a simple sentence is also an independent clause, right? It can stand on its own and it has a subject as well as a predicate. Then we have a compound sentence, right? Which is made up of two independent clauses. So a compound sentence has got two independent clauses, right? Which is joined by a conjunction, which is and, but, or so. And we have a complex sentence as well as a compound complex sentence, right? And a complex sentence has both in clause as well as a subordinate clause, right? Or a dependent clause, let's put it like that, a dependent clause, right? Which means that the dependent clause is dependent on the independent clause within that sentence. So thank you very much, grade 8, for joining our class. And I really hope you'll have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.